Let's talk more about where this rally goes from here this morning with Fundstrat Global Advisors Head of Research and CNBC contributor Tom Lee, who recently raised his target to S&P 6K. Tom, good to have you. I loved your note the other day looking at what S&P revenue has done in the face of declining inflation. And your general point is that real revenue has accelerated, and that kind of explains why equities have been so resilient.
That's right, Carl. As you know, many investors and pundits thought as inflation fell, and it's been cut in half in the last 2 years, that would cause revenue growth not only to hit a wall, but that earnings would stall. But instead, S&P revenue growth is going to be over 5% this quarter. And on a real basis, that's over plus 2%. And that's the strongest. It's really one of the strongest numbers in more than 2 years. And so it is a really high quality earnings season so far. And, close to 80%, or actually more than 80% are beating earnings so far. So it's a good beat season, but it's early.
Right. And how much of it is due to financials? Is any kind of tailwind, although we heard various comments about this, if a Fed tailwind does exist, is it likely to affect other areas of the economy as much as the banks?
Well, in your opening comments, you talked about industrials, and that's something to watch because last week financials reported, and it was, pretty much universally better than expected, and financials are doing really well year to date. But the other group that's very sensitive to the Fed cutting would be industrials, and there's a lot of industrial reports this week. It's about a quarter of the S&P, but I'd say it's so far so good. And again, industrials are doing well in the face of an ISM that's kind of been at rock bottom for 2 years now.
Tom, how much would you ascribe the recent momentum to aspects of the election as that draws near, just over 2 weeks away?
I think that's been a dynamic. I mean, I've been fooled by seasonality because I figured from September to Election Day, markets would be very tentative because this is an extremely close race. I mean, this is a coin toss, according to Nate Silver. But something that Stan Druckenmiller said last week might explain a lot, that markets are betting that Republicans could take the Senate, and that actually could ignite animal spirits. So there may be underlying momentum that the Republicans take parts of Congress, and that's why markets are bullish.
Are you at all worried? There were some comments out of German PPI was down 1.4 year on year, Tom, but there was some ancillary commentary about worries about a reflationary period, largely due to geopolitical events. We mentioned oil coming back a bit today. How worried are you about that?
Well, I think that headline CPI could definitely get affected because oil moves dynamically, and it has an almost immediate effect on headline CPI. And we know transport costs have also spiked recently. Part of it's seasonal, but that affects headline. I think the market's going to be somewhat skeptical that could trigger a sustained reigniting of inflation. But I think the economic data is going to be a little confusing the next couple of months because, the Boeing strike itself is going to affect the jobs report. But I think ultimately the Fed is still on a path towards getting back to neutral. I think that should be the focus. And that means, stocks which have been strong are really still a buy the dip market.
Hold on to your portfolios, folks, because the stock market has introduced us to yet another breathtaking surge that's hitting headlines. Today, we're diving into the incredible rise of Nvidia Corporation, a company that's been a major game changer in the tech arena. As the demands for AI-driven technologies skyrockets, Nvidia finds itself on a remarkable trajectory, pushing its shares to never-seen-before peaks, making waves across Wall Street. Although we won't spill all the details just yet, let's just say terms like nine-fold increase are being tossed around like confetti at a party. And with hyperscalers, tech behemoths like Microsoft, Meta, Google, and Amazon throwing their hats into the ring, the excitement is just getting started. This latest marvel in the world of stocks isn't just a trend, it's a movement, and you wouldn't want to miss out on the narrative unfolding here. Welcome back, everyone, to Investocracy.
All right, well, don't look now, but Wall Street is coming around to Nvidia. You remember a couple months ago, they said, sell it. Well, Bank of America now has hiked its target to reflect a 40% move from Friday's close. And get this, they're citing generational opportunity. Let's bring in Southbound Capital Management President, Fox Business contributor Gary Kay. Hey, Gary, I guess they all come around at some point. Bank of America, so they're pointing to free cash flow. They say will rival Apple. I mean, I think that was we kind of knew that, the kind of cash they're bringing in, but the bandwagon's starting to fill up. And what I want to ask you is, when you get into something mostly before the street, and if the bandwagon starts to fill up, do you sell automatically? Do you lighten up? What do you do?
You watch the stock. Look, the generational opportunity on this stock is a couple of years ago at least. I would say the horse is out of the barn and the train has left the station already. The good news is the stock is breaking out of a 4-month range today. This is the third time in a year. And typically when this stock moves out of range, it puts more points on the scoreboard. So a good day for it. My big worry this second is you got the NASDAQ up today while the advanced declines on the NASDAQ are almost 3-to-1 negative. So it feels like the market's starting to go back to mega cap. You're seeing it in some other names in mega cap land here. And we don't want to see too many names where we have these big divergences with bad advanced declines and just a few stocks going up.
You know, it was interesting, though, even last week, though, Nvidia was up and almost all the semis were down for the week. But I do want to pick up on what you're talking about in terms of breaking these multi-month ranges, right? Because you mentioned some in your note, including Apple, Broadcom, and of course Nvidia. When they break out like that, Apple last week had some good news coming out of China. Is that a buy opportunity? Is that a buy signal for you?
Yeah, when breakouts are working and more show up, you go after it. It's because they get rid of all the supply of stock. Everybody's in profits, everybody's happy, and they'll tend to hold on. Plus, you have to understand something good is usually going on with that stock on earnings and sales. I must tell you, Apple is close to breaking out. I think it's about 14, 15 weeks. And all I read is China's slowing, China's fast, China's slowing. I'm getting different, news items from it. But if the stock breaks out, it should be owned. Again, more points to be put on the scoreboard for that name.
In the ever volatile world of stocks, where fortunes rise and fall sometimes faster than a day trader's morning coffee, something extraordinary is happening with Nvidia. Imagine this. Nvidia's shares are now up over a stunning 186% since January, and more than 9-fold since the launch of OpenAI's ChatGPT. For those visualizing this ascent, just picture a roller coaster that only goes one way, up and up, defying gravity and the skeptics' doubts. The price reached a new high, standing strong above $142, outpacing previous records set back in June, like it's running on a secret AI engine of enthusiasm. The figures behind this phenomenon are as enticing as the storyline itself. Jensen Huang, Nvidia's charismatic CEO, recently remarked that the demand for their next-gen Blackwell GPU platform is nothing short of insane. In a world where everyone's fighting to stay ahead, it seems everyone wants Nvidia's chips first. And why wouldn't they? These gems are pivotal to constructing data centers packed to the rafters with advanced AI capabilities. This isn't just speculation. It's substantiated by orders flooding in from hyperscalers looking to expand their frontier in AI. A jest, albeit fitting, might be that if Nvidia's stock were a character in a movie, it would be the relentless hero that keeps defeating the odds. Only this time it's armed with the power of GPUs. Industry insiders eagerly await financial results on November 20th. And if the forecasts are any line to hold on to, revenue predictions at a staggering $32.904 billion. Nvidia's ascendancy shows no sign of slowing. But before we go any further, if you want to keep up with Nvidia's latest updates and keep up with the stock market's latest news, you can follow our Twitter account. We post multiple times daily about the biggest changes and catalysts in the market, so click the follow button if you don't want to miss the newest market updates. That said, back to the video.
Nvidia hitting all-time highs while the 10-year Treasury yield bounces back above 4.1%. Let's get to Mike Santoli for a closer look at that tug of war in the market. Mike.
Yeah, John, Nvidia, I mean, it really did support the indexes from losses beyond what we did get. The S&P 500 obviously really had a minimum move down. Would have been twice as big a drop if not for this move in Nvidia today. You see here up 4%. And what's more significant is this potential breakout of a 4-month range. Back in June, the intraday high was around 141. We did break above that today. Now, obviously, false breakouts are a thing that do happen, but it's not necessarily something you'd want to bet on. Usually, it's pretty powerful if a high-velocity stock like this finally breaks free after this period of time. Obviously, we have earnings, but for Nvidia, not for about a month. I put the 50-day moving average in here, too, because it does show that sort of shorter-term trend has curled higher. So this is at least a bit of support or maybe a little bit of a beacon for the bulls to keep watching as you see if the market can add to these gains.
Mike, what catches my eye about this Nvidia move today is a lot of semiconductor names were up as well, but it was up more than those. And then a couple of momentum names were higher. A lot of them were lower. And it was up maybe along with those momentum names as well. It seems to be performing like a semiconductor stock, but better, and also like a momentum name, but bigger.
100%. I think it's really somewhat disengaged from the rest of the group. I've pointed out many times, if you look at just the average semiconductor, the XSD, the equal weighted semi index, it looks nothing like the Nvidia chart. It really is a little bit of its own species within the market. And you're right, in terms of once you get those kind of speculative juices running, or at least just some high momentum kind of appetites in the market, it's going to find its way into those parts of the market. I'm not saying that somehow makes it dangerous, but it's something that shows you that it's not just moving because the entire group has caught a bid because people are bringing earnings estimates up or something like that.
An analyst from B of A Securities, Vivek Araya, buoyed with optimism, maintains a buy rating, raising price targets for future bannering to $190. Such high hopes are only bolstered by reports that AI's demand remains as robust as ever, a fact underscored by the impressive earnings shared by Taiwan's semiconductor manufacturing company. However, Nvidia's voyage isn't without its fair share of turbulences. Heightened export restrictions, courtesy of the Biden administration, especially concerning advanced AI chips being exported to the Persian Gulf, have steered volatile winds in the chip sector. Yet, even amidst the choppy waters, Nvidia continues to power ahead, announcing partnerships like their recent venture with healthcare startup ADOC. This collaboration intends to integrate AI into healthcare more effectively, promising innovations that might soon become part of everyday clinical workflows. But jokes aside, if you had bet against Nvidia a year ago, you'd be the center of numerous "I told you so" jokes at any investing gathering right now. All the while, the broader U.S. market painted its typical complex picture, with major indices reflecting a slowing sentiment, marked by rising treasury yields and a strengthening dollar. Yet, amid the downbeat tunes of the Dow and the S&P 500, Nvidia remained a note of exuberance. As treasury yields hit new highs and the VIX curve, a measure for market volatility, spiked, risk appetites were muted. Yet, like a lighthouse amid the storm, Nvidia surged over 2%, hitting fresh all-time highs. It's a saga akin to that honey badger from viral fame years back, fearless, undeterred, and powering on. But before going any further, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. These videos take a lot of effort and time to make. So if you enjoyed them, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This goes a long way in helping us grow. That said, back to the video.
Well, let's get to a stock that Julian had mentioned, Nvidia hitting another all-time high today. The semi-stock jumping 4%, bringing its market cap above $3.5 trillion for the first time ever. It is now just $80 billion behind Apple. It last topped the iPhone maker back in July when it briefly became the biggest company in the world, but it just keeps powering higher, Guy.
Carter can opine on this. And so we had been mentioning June 20th, and actually that was right to mention it in the weeks or days after because you saw what happened on August 5th. I mean, the stock went down almost 38%. Obviously, it's recouped the entire thing. And now with today's close, that June 20th engulfing pattern is out the window. Now it feels like it did back March, April, May when it started this next leg higher. With all that said, the stock has gotten itself more expensive. I think $3.5 trillion now-ish or thereabouts. They report on November 20th. So the question, I guess, is, are we in a new sort of trading range, and do we continue to move higher into earnings middle of November?
I mean, here too, the dispersion, half the stocks in the SOX index were down today, half were up, and of course, leading the way, and that's Julian's point. A breakout is a breakout, right? So one would have to respect that, and in principle, NVIDIA has just now exceeded its high of about 5 months ago. The presumption is higher.
Are you kicking yourself, Grasso?
Yes. How's it feel? In one word, not so great. So this one didn't give me the chance to get back in. This is the problem with trading stocks. When you have an idea, you sort of fall in love with your premise and your chart and your levels. And I waited for my level. The level didn't happen. Got away from me. I'm still going to sit on my hands.
Well, I think if you to speak to some of Carter's comments on the divergence, bifurcation. I mean, look at AMD up 5% on the year and NVIDIA up 227%. Yeah. And AMD was supposed to be a distant, but at least a second choice here in the AI trade. So they're not all created equal. I still think Taiwan Semi, if you can remove geopolitics around this, is the one you want to own.
With all signs pointing north for NVIDIA, an undeniable allure extends to both seasoned investors and new market enthusiasts. It's not merely about investing in a stock. It's about participating in a narrative that promises innovative chapters ahead. NVIDIA's prowess in capturing and harnessing the future of AI isn't just evidence of its strategic vision, but also the huge potential for growth in coming years. Current forecasts suggest remarkable continuance, with analysts projecting further gains, some boldly anticipating the stock to potentially double in the next several years. This isn't wishful thinking. It's a calculated prediction rooted in NVIDIA's current leadership and its expanding influence across key sectors. As NVIDIA edges forward, holding court with tech giants like Microsoft and Amazon, alongside its burgeoning role in diverse industries like healthcare, its position remains enviably strong. So, how do you feel about this meteoric rise? Are you ready to jump aboard the NVIDIA journey as it crafts the future one chip at a time? Your thoughts and investments await. So, step in where the action truly lies. And finally, if you would like to know what companies like NVIDIA have been up to these past few days, go ahead and click on the next video on your screen. See you there.